You're listening to the Sonny Brown Breakdown. Now, it is time to break it down.
Welcome to episode 54 of the Sonny Brown Breakdown. I'm your host, Sonny Brown, and in this episode, I talk to Lachlan Giles. Now, after placing third at the Adcc Absolute Division in 2019, Lachlan returned to coaching at his academy while he prepares for the next round of Adcc. And part of what we discussed today is his experiments in teaching using the reverse classroom model, his own investigations into skill acquisition and learning, and also the launch of his new online learning site, Submeta. So I hope you enjoy this discussion. It's always an honor to have Lachlan on the show. And if you'd like to support us, you can buy a shirt or hoodie at scuffle.com.au. It's SCUFFLE.com.au. And if you want to send me any feedback, the email is sunnybrown@gmail.com or Instagram is sunnybrownbreakdown. Now, without further ado, let's go to the podcast. G'day, Lachlan. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad at all, mate. It's great to have you back. And I mean, since we spoke last, a lot's going on in the world. You're back out doing seminars. You've had your first child with Livia.
Yep.
And that must have changed things a lot for you.
Well, yeah, it was obviously a COVID baby. So he's already seen a difference in a world. I think he was born into a lockdown. and then, well, actually, it wasn't. I think that week it wasn't, but then the next week it was or something. But yeah, the next few months it was. So there's a lot going on there. So we're back open again now and things are up and running. So I'm back to, I guess, a sense of normality, but now with a child. So that makes it just as hard to organise anything.
And back out there now, you've gone over to Europe recently, done a series of seminars over there. How'd you find that to get back out and on the seminar circuit again?
Yeah, good. I was doing mostly actually, I went over there for a private lessons with a guy in Portugal. And then I was just doing weekend seminars.
Okay.
As well, which was good. It was all right. I mean, it was definitely harder traveling with COVID. Just there's already enough, in my opinion, there's enough things you have to do traveling, or the amount of checks and stops and taking all your stuff out of your bag, putting it through the thing, getting your tickets, getting everything scanned and so on. And now you've got an added layer or two. Yeah, I mean, as an example, on the way back from, well, we weren't allowed on a flight from Switzerland to Abu Dhabi because Etihad has their own policy about needing a PCR, but Australia had changed their rule that you could just do a rapid test. And I was like, well, instead of all of us spending $200 for a PCR, we can just get a rapid test. So we did that, and then we didn't realize that the airline could have its own policy. So we got stuck in Switzerland, and even then, we booked a flight for the next day, to get back home, and that was with British Airways. And I think we were the first person at the front of the queue. I was like, okay, we can't mess it up. And we had all the documents there. We had to get another test and show them. And we had one guy sitting with us from 3 hours before the flight until might have been there was 50 minutes until we were flying, when he finally finished processing all our documents. He had to call up people and they had to wait and call them back. It was just a real nightmare, especially being from Australia with all the restrictions, and they weren't sure whether we were allowed to get on. And yeah, so going off topic from what we're wanting to talk about, but yeah, so traveling's different now.
I could sense the pain.
I think that might be getting better now as the world's kind of...
Hope so.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, part of that, that time going through that lockdown, it seems like you did start developing or looking into more things that you could do with online learning. And one of the things that you did recently, it seems, or I think for the last 6 to 12 months perhaps, was experimenting with the reverse classroom model or the flipped classroom model, which is something I talked about before with Bruce Hoyer, who had been doing it over in America. And it's very interesting in how it could potentially work for jiu-jitsu, where people are watching videos of the content before coming to class and then practicing it, using their class time to practice it. How did you first come across the idea to do this, and what were your initial steps in looking to undertake, or the motivation even to undertake this trial?
Yeah, right. So I suppose we have to go back a little bit. So I've always, as a coach, one of the hardest things is like trying to figure out how do I structure my classes to the group. And it's hard. I actually don't think there's actually a really good way, because no matter what you teach, some people might not use it. People have different ways of passing the guard, different ways of playing guard, different ways of finishing. Pretty much the whole scope of jiu-jitsu, there's a lot of individual ability for them to have your own individual style. And when you're running a class, you can't really cater to that well. I can potentially show all the different ways of passing the guard, but that takes a long time to get that through. And I have to then set up a full curriculum, which obviously we have, but how long does it take? And you have to spend time on a theme as well if you want people to get it. Like, you want to teach all the different types of guard, but that's also bad because there might be 2 or 3 types of guard that the person actually uses, and you're teaching them 15. Most of their time, I won't say it's wasted, because I think there's still value in going to class, but it's probably not optimized. It's not the best use of their time. So you have that side of it, and then you also have the level, like how developed, how advanced is the student, because the way I would teach someone on their first day is different to the way I'd teach them a year in as an established white belt with maybe a few stripes on their belt, which would be different to how I'd teach a purple belt, which is different to how I would teach a black belt. And I'm talking about the same, potentially even the same move, just the amount of steps and what details I think you need to focus on. And, that varies. So how do you cater to all this as a coach? And I think the answer is you can't. Like, you just have to do your best, and that's what we do. We show, like at least when I have like a curriculum like that, I have a theme and I show that, and I have separate classes for different levels. That's the way I do it. So I have like beginner class, intermediate, and even advanced, where I can show some more. There's more assumed knowledge, I guess, going into it, but that still doesn't really get past the issue of different styles that people develop. And the way I can think of that as a coach is just like spend more time teaching the positions that everyone does, passing the half guard, taking the back. There's certain skill sets that pretty much everyone uses. So teach them more often in class, and then have, like, so if I take something like spider guard, if that's the theme for the week, then very few people in the class will probably actually end up using spider guard. Maybe that's the kind of thing that's better studied by yourself, and you come in and you practice.
Yep.
So that's probably how I see it as an ideal world. Yeah. So just looking at that and the problems, the dilemma you have as a coach there, for a long time, I've kind of had like, for the advanced guys, if you've got something you want to work in, then just come in and, you can do that. The problem is that can be quite distracting. I still like to follow the class format. So, okay, when I stop to talk and explain something, then everyone stops and pay attention, because otherwise you just lose the class, and that's no good for anyone. When we're doing any drills or whatever, you're doing drills. When we're doing specific training, you can specific train from your spot, but we're still doing specific training. And then when we roll, you roll, so they still follow the class format, but they can come in and practice. If they've got something they're working on, then they can do that. And then obviously with the website that that I think we might talk about a little later, but that was, I had an idea. Well, how do I give people access to the information I want them to know for their particular style, and be able to develop them having giving them some direction to that kind of flipped classroom model. So I should say mine's kind of, you're talking to Bruce. I've spoken to Bruce actually. I think he's 100% flipped classroom model.
Yes.
Mine is,
he's gone deep.
I would say I've gone like halfway there. So I have a theme I'm teaching for the week. If you come into one of my intermediate classes, you'll still sit there. I'll still explain a technique. It's just then when it's time to practice, if you've got your thing that you've studied, then go and you can practice that when it gets to situational training, which is,
okay.
The advantage of going 100% flipped classroom is there's more time, you're straight into working the thing, but I suppose the disadvantage is, at least from what I've noticed, most of the time people like, you know, the pre-study thing is a big commitment you're asking. Some people just want to come to, they just want to, like, they finish work, they just want to come to class, and they just want to do some exercise and not have to, you know, get away from the stresses of life. And they don't necessarily want to have to study every day or every week for the particular thing. So yeah, so the way I'm doing that, and then, but with obviously with the website, I'm basically assigning people like every 6 months a particular topic and giving them content on that, which, you know, it's usually like a 1 to 2, maybe slightly longer, maybe even shorter, 1 to 2 hour course, kind of covering the main things that I want them to know from that position. And I can, that way I can look at their game and say, well, you know, I see that you're doing this, either, like, you know, you could study this advanced course on that will help you out there, or actually I think this other thing will go well with your style and it's going to really fit into your game. And to actually have content on that available that I can give someone, I think it's been really good and it's been really well received at the gym. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So from my understanding then, it was really to solve that problem of how to reach the most people with jiu-jitsu, and jiu-jitsu having such a vast array of content that could possibly be taught, and just trying to find what's the best way to make sure that people get the techniques that they're going to use and not spend as much time inefficiently working techniques that they perhaps will not use.
Yeah.
And that this is one of the solutions that you've potentially found to be able to do this.
Yeah. And I think actually it's probably one other way you can get around it, but I don't think I wouldn't enjoy that as a coach either, but like, you can just teach your style.
Yeah.
Like your A game. I think a lot of people just do that. Like, it's kind of like, let's pretend half the guards, 3/4 of the guards don't exist, and we're just doing like butterfly, single X, and shin to shin. And that's your game, and that's all I teach. And then everyone at the gym has the same style. And the positive of that is that, like, people who get good at that style get good at beating people who are defending it, because everyone in the gym's doing it. But you can also then come against someone who plays an open guard, like a different style of guard, and you're just like really thrown out. I remember I had my own experience. Like, I grew up through the Machado lineage, and obviously there was like more things taught than this, but I tended to like really focus on a butterfly game. And I remember I went to roll at AET with Ninos and the AET guys some time ago, and they were all doing collar sleeve guard, and I'd never really trained with anyone who was doing collar sleeve guard, and I was like, whoa, I need to change my passing postures to try to deal with this. And so that was really beneficial for me. But ideally, at your own gym, you're being exposed to a wide variety of attacks, so you're ready for those sort of things.
Yeah, it's a difficult one to broach, because obviously it does feel good too as a coach. I'm just going to show my A game as well, because it's you've got more confidence in your A game. Obviously, you're like, I know for sure this works, but there is always going to be that issue of someone coming out and having that different style and then running through your guys or something like that, and just having to fall back on that is probably not the best way to reach the most people.
But on the downside of teaching so many things is it's hard for anyone to get good at anything. Even if you just write out all the guards and you spend a week, if you spent 1 week on each guard, it's going to take you half a year or more to go through all that, which is, that's hard too. So that's why my conclusion was that this flipped classroom model that I'm using is a better way to do it.
Yeah, I know. I think it's a great way to tackle the problem. I mean, I got to fall back on a saying from Greg Nelson on that one, which is the jack of all trades, master of none, master of few, and jack everyone. That's the way to do it,
Yeah.
So take me through then how you started off with just the regular class, because it seemed like then it was different, as you even mentioned, different to how Bruce Hoyer is doing it. So people will come in, and do you still take them through a warm-up? And then it sounded like there would still be some instruction, but then it would move to their own personal drilling time? Or how was the general structure?
So the people warm up with drilling, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically start the class by teaching. So I'll teach let's say it's a intermediate class. I have a set theme for the intermediate classes, like a curriculum that I'm sort of following, that I'm teaching, right? Just to make sure people, I think it's important too, that they're exposed to different parts of jiu-jitsu. So I'll teach that, and then it'll be drills. And you can drill that, or you can drill the thing that you've been assigned, or kind of whatever you want, really. I often sit there in front of the class, because probably the bad thing is I'll show something and I look around and a lot of the time everyone's doing it. And I'm like, guys, you should have your own things.
Of course.
You should have your own thing to work on. Like, do that. That's better use of your time than what I'm showing. But in the end, that still happens a lot. Because I think that, like I said, a lot of people just want to not think and come and train. But for those who do, I think it's really valuable. So that they get to then kind of warm up by drilling, and then I might possibly show another variation, or depend. Sometimes I show kind of like, I just give like a big talk at the start with a bunch of different variations and kind of give them the information and then get them to practice it. Then it'll be situational training, so specific training. So start in your position. It might be 1-for-1, or it might be that you go 5 minutes, your partner goes 5 minutes, and anytime you're out of position, you reset. So that's, again, it can be the thing we're working on, or it can be the thing you're working on. And I try to put a bit of troubleshooting and Q&A, reading a lot of skill acquisition literature of recent, and I'm trying to just get people. I think one of the most important thing is to recognize the area you need to improve on. So I just try to, like, often at the end of a situational training round, I sort of say, okay, I want you to you were trying to do your position. I want you to tell your training partner, like, get in the position, like, kind of go through it, but like, tell them one thing they were doing that was annoying to you, like that was making it hard for you to get your move to work. Mostly just so that they identify what the problem is that they were having. Because I think a lot of the time people they do something that doesn't work and they don't really think about why. And at least if you know, what's happening is you're grabbing my leg here. I know that. And now when we go next time, I can try to intercept that, or I can, you might have a bit of time to actually try and troubleshoot that and stop that. But even I think just being aware of what someone's doing means you can be faster on your counters to it when you're actually live training. So yeah, that's kind of how I do it. I'm kind of going off topic from
that's fine.
classroom thing here, but yeah, so do that, and then it's usually rolling rounds.
Okay, so it's like you will still show a technique every class, as even, say, just a backup for.
Yeah.
One of the things I was going to ask about is, what do you do if people are turning up and they haven't done their homework, so to say.
Yeah.
That's not going to be a concern for you, because you're still showing the technique. They can do that if that's what they want to do on that particular day.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. And then when you go into the positional rounds, you mentioned that they can work, again, the position from that technique of the day, or if they've got their partner, they can do the positional rounds from whichever part it is that they're self-learning.
Yeah.
And have you made it, those positions that they're working, the spots where to reset?
Yeah.
How clear do you make that for people, or is that just to work out themselves? Because there's always people who have questions like, can I go for a, footlock from the back or something from here? Is that still working?
Like, for the position that I've shown on the day, I usually just say, like, okay, if you work, let's say I'm showing, I think this week at the gym, the attacks are arm locks, arm bar. So like, it might be like, start with the arm bar grip. If you're still trying to finish an arm bar, keep going. If you no longer see that the arm bar's an immediate possibility, that's when you stop. So they slip their elbow or whatever. So I might say that. So I try to put it pretty narrow, but I guess when they're working their own position, it's up to them. It's their time for learning. So like, if they put bad parameters on it, then they're going to get less out of it. So they should ideally, if you're trying to work your 50-50 heel hook and you're no longer in 50-50 anymore, you should be like, oh, cool. All right, let's go back and go again. So yeah, there's I guess
a bit of responsibility on them
to
keep that reasonable positional work going on. So then also with the like topics that the students have to work through, will you give them guidance on what to assign, on what to assign them, or do you just let them figure it out themselves? And I guess since we did start touching on the element of feedback there, what level of feedback are you giving to people that are following the self-learning through the website?
Yeah. So how do they choose it? Well, I actually have, like, they don't get access. I actually have to assign it to them. Like, I have a whole list of my students and I can click on them and give them a particular topic. That was one thing I wanted, because we wanted to get past a little bit the paradox of choice, which is you give them too many possibilities to work on and they don't work on anything. So I actually wanted to just go like, okay, this is your one thing I'm giving you and you're going to study that. I want you to be working that for a while, because you get some people who, each week they're doing something different and they don't get really good at anything. So to do that, I sit down with them and briefly, but just discuss. It's a little bit of, it's usually not just me saying it, unless there's something I just like definitely want them to work. It's usually a discussion more than me tell them like, do this, just because even like in the research, having a bit of autonomy on like what you want to work on, people actually learn better. Like if it's something that if it's a skill that they've chosen to try to improve, they tend to improve better at that. So, and I think it's more enjoyable too. If you tell me, you come to me and saying like, I might say like, okay, I want you to work your guard. So what kind of guard do you want to work? And you say deep half guard. I might look at you and be like, but you do lots of no-gi and deep half guard's not the best no-gi guard. Like it can work, but do you really want to do it? But if they really want to do it, I'll let them. But I might direct them somewhere if I think they've chosen something that's not very suitable to their game.
Okay, so you're allowing that choice, but also eliminating the paradox of choice, as you said.
That's it. I haven't had it going for long enough to like, I do want like I'll be giving people things that they won't choose. Like certain people that I think like everyone at some point will have like half guard retention as a topic, which is like basic guard. Guard retention is a topic that a lot of people don't actively. People want to do offense, but I'll be making people do their defensive things because it's like essential. So like that's probably going to come first. I want from guard, for example. I usually want someone to have good offense for you want a guard that you're trying to play. Okay, I'm trying to play half guard. Cool, that's good. But then after that, or maybe they've got half guard and another half butterfly, two things that are working well together. Okay, you need to now. We're going to make sure you do something guard retention related as well to even out your game. So there'll be some ones that they might not choose, but they should.
So you're still going to make them eat their vegetables is pretty much what I'm hearing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I might give them some, a good meal before that.
And so I guess all that tracking, then the progress tracking for that side of things is built into the website.
Yeah.
What type of, as they're doing their specific drilling, are you giving them feedback individually as much as you can as you move around? Or is that then, do they try and pair up with people who are also working on the same thing? They can workshop it themselves?
Not so much like that. I mean, people pair up with people that they like training with generally anyway. So I tend not to like, I know some gyms like they choose everyone's partners, which I think can be good, but I suppose I'm like too lazy for that. So I'll just let grab a partner, get into it. But usually people will pair up with people that they know they like training with. So it's a more comfortable in training environment. Look, I'm probably not it could be something I could try to be better at, but I also don't think it's the most effective way to teach is to like go over and tell people what to do. Like I really think the question has to come from them. They have to be like, it doesn't have to, but I think it's much more well received if the person says like, I'm having trouble with this. What am I doing wrong? Can you help me here? And I can go, oh, let me have a look. Let me try. Like, I might have to get in there with their partner and try it with resistance and go, oh, okay, because they're defending that way, the move you're doing is actually not correct. I would actually change to this or whatever. I think that's really valuable. I think seeing someone trying to do a move and me going over and going, oh, you should do this. If they haven't experienced the problem if they haven't really experienced why what they're currently doing is incorrect, they won't learn it that well, if that makes sense. They need to be receptive to learn. So I'm probably a little bit more hands-off there than some people, but I just, my experience with that is that trying to develop a culture where people ask questions is more important than a culture where I know everything and I just come around and tell you do this, that, and I don't think that works as well either. So a lot of it's as well. I want people to be, maybe if I ask you, like if I think about the best grapplers I know, they all do their own problem solving. Craig, Kit, but this is in Australia. People I've trained with a lot. Dave Marinakis and some of the guys from Immersion, Lee Ting, like it's all like self-directed problem solving, and they're the best guys, and I think that's not a coincidence. So I try to develop that as the norm, as in the culture if I can. So even just like I was saying with the, when you finish your situational training rounds, like discuss with your partner something you found difficult, starts getting them in that mindset, and then they might have a good question. Often I find actually, like I might go, we finish specific training, I go, do you guys have any questions? And then no one says anything. And then, but if I instead go, okay, discuss with your partner, like something that you found difficult, and see if you can try to solve it as well. And then I might give them like 3 or 4 minutes to do that, because it takes a bit of time for each person to get in position and kind of work it out. And then I say, does anyone have any questions? I usually get a bunch of hands raised. So I do find that's good for getting people thinking more. And even the thing is, even if you go against someone, like let's say I'm working my 50-50 heel hook and I get a heel hook every time, there's usually still something in my opponent's defense that I didn't like that was happening. I was like, oh, it was actually really hard when you were grabbing my wrist here and I dealt with it, but I want to break that down a bit more and figure out how I can stop that from being an issue. So I think everyone can come up with good questions, even if they're successful from their position in the session.
Yeah, I think that process of, as you mentioned, discussion between themselves, and then using that to help generate the questions rather than just the falling flat.
Yeah.
when you ask and everyone being worried about, is this a stupid question or something like that, and feeling nervous to ask. That's a good way to kind of solve that issue. What are the other things that, looking into skill acquisition, is that you think could be of benefit in that area?
Oh, there's quite a lot. It's the first thing that I spent like so long trying to get my head around is, have you read much on skill acquisition? Have you?
A little bit, but I mean, it's Dr. Giles here, so I'll defer.
If you want to like hurt your brain a little bit, go and watch. There's a guy, Rob Gray. I've actually been listening to his podcast for ages, but I always, when I'd listen to it, he does a podcast on skill acquisition. But when I'd listen to it, I was always like, I had a particular question, and if he was on that topic, I would like try and find that topic, and then he would start talking about like, there's a lot of like terminology there, and then when I was listening to about that topic, but he'd go and talk about ecological dynamics, which is like a thing I'll talk about in a sec. But like when he'd start talking about those sort of things, I was like, I don't know what he's talking about there, but I want to know the answer to like, how hard should practice be? Like, things like that. Like that's what I was trying to find out. And then when I was like, okay, let me just like, let me have a listen to him talk about the theories of skill acquisition. And there's 2 competing theories: the information processing theory and another one called ecological dynamics, which is actually seems to be the most commonly held theory now, as in like that's the one that people seem to go by the most in the skill acquisition world, but it's like the opposite to what people are doing in jiu-jitsu. And I to be honest, I'm not I can't even reconcile it, to be honest, from my experiences. But it's basically like information processing is essentially like your brain's processing what's going on, and like therefore you can learn by like thinking about things, and the more you understand and about a topic, you can apply that, and it actually like gets you better. As the ecological dynamics kind of just says, it's all like you learn kind of within the environment, like it's very context specific into the environment that you're in, and as soon as you take yourself out of that, it stops having much or any transfer across into your actual abilities. But I still think the information processing is so important for strategizing for your grappling and coming up with like good ideas for your training. But I'm trying to find ways to like, I'm basically doing less drilling and more live training as a result of all this, like more situational training and games based training and so on as a result of this.
Okay, so that was when you said more less drilling, more rolling. I was going to ask, what are you putting then, more constraints or just keeping it like situational? Or
yes, exactly. Yeah, a lot more constraints, which is so I strongly agree with. Not that I'm in any position to like be an authority on skill acquisition, but I think that when you're the closer to, the more time you can get practicing the skill in its context that it wants to be applied, the better. So like if I am showing an armbar now, then I quite quickly will go, all right, well, this is where we want to get to. Let's do that. We might like really isolate that part and say, let's try and get it to here. Like practice that as a skill, because it's it is a different feel doing an armbar on a non-resisting partner, where really, to me, you're just trying to understand the steps. You're trying to understand what's my goal from here? Where am I trying to get to? Okay, I'm in mount. I've got to get my hips behind the shoulder first. Then I've got to get into S mount. Then I've got to separate the arms, and I've got to straighten the arm or whatever. But each of those are actually skills that you need to be good at, not just a goal. So like as soon as you know what the goals are, you need to now learn it live. Like if you want to get to your hips behind the shoulder, then let's train that with resistance, and we can troubleshoot, and you'll see that there's different ways of going about this, and it's not so simple as just knowing the step.
Yeah, that idea of just someone could know the steps, but if they haven't learnt it on a resisting partner, then the idea that they're going to hit it the first time live becomes very limited, I guess.
I am speaking to a guy in Wales. He's doing his PhD in skill acquisition.
Okay.
He's in the research field anyway. He's also a judo coach, so he kind of reached out to me when I made a post about skill acquisition, but he teaches judo without ever teaching a technique.
Yeah, okay. This is interesting
because
it's something I have spoken to Andy from School of Grappling. I've talked to him a bunch of times about this, where that's his goal is to, he says, teaching without actually showing, just setting constraints and then letting the techniques emerge through the constraints of the games or situational.
Yeah, so that sounds like Andy's following the ecological dynamics, or it's also called the constraints-led approach. So
it's very interesting.
Yeah, I just can't completely.
It's hard because it's the exact opposite of what the majority of people are still doing and how we managed to learn ourselves. Although I think they'd argue that even though that we were shown techniques, it was probably that, the drilling and the sparring where it really embedded itself in our game.
Well, this guy I was speaking to in Wales, he even thinks that drilling's basically got zero transfer. Like he said, it's the way to the feedback you're getting is so far removed from the feedback you would get when you're actually training that it's almost useless. So, which I look at the best guys in the world, and like most of them that I knew growing up drilled a lot, and it could just be that actually they're just the most like committed, and they were going to do anything they could do. They were probably training more as well, and just like they were all in on it. But I definitely noticed that to be a more common, if you could take the Meows and a whole bunch of people as an example, who I don't know if they're particularly athletically gifted people, but had like this training methodology that seemed to work really well for them, but that flies in the face of the current skill acquisition research. So it's very interesting. And I was still I actually want to do, I'm planning on doing, I haven't got around to it yet, but I'm planning on doing an actual randomized controlled trial.
Here we go.
Test drilling versus just situational training and see if adding drilling for a beginner is actually useful.
Here we go. All right. Of course, I'm going to be interested in how that goes. How could I not? Yeah. It is a very interesting topic of the Rob Gray podcast you mentioned. The Perception Action podcast is a good one that goes deep on it. And yeah, there's a lot to get into. Yeah,
actually, for anyone, I think the actual, there's like one, I don't know if it's on his podcast, it's on his YouTube channel. Like he's got something that's called the two skill acquisition theories, key differences. It's called something like that. Maybe write that in YouTube, and you'll see him kind of talk about it, and you'll hopefully, if it makes sense to you, let me know. It makes sense to me, but it's just like it's hard to gel with my experiences. So
yeah, especially I guess as a school owner too, one of the things with that is a lot of people coming into class have already a expectation of what the class is going to be like, and that is going to be there, you're giving them the techniques step by step, and the idea that they are going to just be able to learn better by not even showing a technique, just by setting those drills in place may be difficult to get across as well, with the idea being that I'm able to teach a technique without even teaching a technique, so to speak.
Yeah.
Might be difficult for a class member who's like, well, he didn't actually teach anything.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a serious consideration as well, is like, have you done a better job if you end up with a quarter of as many students.
Serious question.
even though maybe those quarter are learning at a faster rate because you've got a better skill acquisition knowledge and implementation, but in the end, like you need sometimes like the student satisfaction is sometimes the most important thing.
Yeah, it's a big topic, and I guess then on the idea of student satisfaction, when you were doing the reverse classroom model, to get back to that, how, what problems did you encounter, or, what were the benefits that you ended up seeing from that on the whole with the majority of the group?
Oh, it's huge benefits, because I think like I'm now giving people have a gap. It's actually really hard to, I mean, I've got a pretty big school, and it's really hard. Like there's just no way I can actually individually look at everyone and make sure they're all doing the right thing, unless it's just a set. I could just do a set, like I said, like everyone just does butterfly guard, and I can look and go, well, you're not doing butterfly guard very well. To be honest, like, and especially like having, obviously we get a lot of visitors, and a lot of people when they move to Melbourne, they'll come and train with us just because of the recommendations. So, and sometimes you get someone who comes to train and you're like, I don't know what your style is or what you're doing. It can be difficult to know what they're doing and to actually be able to go, okay, well, I'm going to give you some direction. I want you to do this. And now I know what I can see when you're rolling, whether you're actually doing that and what you're trying to do. I think I made a post about this a while ago. Is like, if I just watch someone roll and they say, oh, how can I improve? What can I do better? It's like, especially if they're losing, my question is, well, what were you trying to do? I don't know what you were trying to do because it didn't work. As in, your partner was beating you and they passed your guard over. Like, what guard were you trying to get? Because what I would do might not be what you should do in this situation. Because if you're trying to get to butterfly guard and I'm trying to get to K guard, then we're going to have totally different responses to the same situation. So you need to understand what someone's game is before you can answer the question of what can they do to improve on the particular scenario or how to deal with the scenario. So, yeah.
So with those, the different kind of pathways people are taking are going to make it, I guess, more difficult to get that understanding of how everything's working out. But on the whole, is it something that you're going to keep doing with the school?
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
Like you don't consider yourself ever going back to how you were doing it before?
I'm very happy with how it's working out.
Yeah, okay.
Always things to improve on.
And so I guess then with that success that you've had, you have turned that into also this new website that you've got, which is Submeta.
Yeah.
And now I do believe, or actually I'll let you answer this, but it was the work that you've put in that reverse classroom experiments that you've then made available for everyone on this Submeta website. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, well, it's kind of like, I'm trying to think which one came first, but I definitely, the website came from me going, okay, well, how do I feel like I'm coaching and teaching? Like, first off, like I have got instructionals through Fanatics, but it's also like I can't ask my students to all pay for instructionals and do all that. And it's also like they're kind of long form and not like, for example, the second most recent one was Open Guard, and that's like a style you can play. But there's other styles and you can mix and match different things together. And I kind of wanted to have something that my students could use where I could give them individual things that weren't so big. Like I couldn't go like, hey, you want you to do the whole Open Guard system now. I just want to give it like, okay, let's just work on like K Guard for now. And that's just like a short, I think there's like a roughly 2 hours of content on K Guard. And that's something I can give them for a while. And then I could add something else that I think fits into their game or what they're working. Could be that they're starting to get arm bars from there and I want to mix it up into the arm bar and so on. So I kind of thought about how I would want to structure it, and then the ability to give that content to my students. And then because there's some guys at the gym that basically they've done the website design and they and there's a developer, and it's basically built from scratch. So I was able to go, I'd like it so I can.
Yeah, I was going to ask if it looks like it is a custom build, custom backend, and it reflects that it's focused on exactly what you're trying to do, because a lot of these sites have a lot of extra functionality that's not really intended for jiu-jitsu learning. It's, normally like corporate workplace environments delivering their HR, HR courses.
Yeah, so that's kind of custom built for that, and they've basically built it so that it can feed into the students. It's really good. So
Okay. And I guess then the question, because there is so many instructionals, or just even your own instructionals, what have you seen, what's the difference then between Submeta and your instructionals? Now, how would you, if someone's looking to learn from you through one of the other options, how do they make that decision?
So the Fanatics instructionals, kind of long format on a particular topic, I would say, apart from the escapes one, they're pretty much all like what I would say is an advanced level. And that's actually probably one of the, which is really like, I mean, look, I'm very happy with the products I produced. Probably one of the downsides is, sometimes you get a white belt who's watching it. I'm like, oh, it's going to be hard for you to sift through what's relevant for you at the time. And I've made a more concerted effort in the more recent ones to kind of go, okay, this is what I want you to focus on first, and then get into this. But it's basically like, they're basically like a resource that kind of covers everything you need to know. Like, they shouldn't really, at least the way I'm trying to make it is, whatever the problem is you're having in that position, there's an answer to that and you can find it. But it's also like a particular style, and it's like the whole thing will fit together as one big system, which is good. With Submeta, I've gone by like levels. So like, I've filmed things for we've got like your first 9 classes is like a first steps course, then a foundations course. Like, so you're now like basically a white belt course. And that's actually what I use at the gym as well. So actually, I should have said that for the flipped classroom thing. I basically have, for our beginners, they all follow a set curriculum. They don't go and do whatever they want. I want them to learn like the major ways you pass the guard, like just some very simple attacks from top and bottom and so on. So, and escapes and so on. So that one's more set. And then you've got intermediate level, which intermediate level is now like, okay, like you're wanting to work a topic. If I just say, let's say the smash pass, it's kind of, in a 1 to 2 hour format, usually it's like, what are the main pathways we're doing? So it's kind of like, you're now like, you want to be really good at this. You're going to have a whole system here. It's like, these are all the major things you're going to deal with. It's not everything. I'm not going into like all the tiny little battles that are less common, but are going to make at a black belt level, are going to make all the difference. But at like you're just starting with this, or not just starting, but you're wanting to be good at the smash bust, it's a good course. And then to have advanced content is like the next level to that. And I can be more, the good thing about this is I think I can be more specific, and I can update it as well. Basically, I've made an instructional, and there's certain things now that I might do a bit different to when I made my instructional before, and there's not much I could do about that. Whereas now I can actually go back and update it and change it the way the site's made. But yeah, if it was Smash Pass and you wanted like an advanced course, you could have like a very specific area of that and it might be like a half an hour course on like something that leads into this, or can follow on from the Smash Pass, like something called the Rugby Pass, which is when they free their hips. I call it the Rugby Pass anyway. You could have like I can add a advanced course onto that, where once you've done the intermediate level course, this is something that you might want to do next to follow up with. But it lets people kind of like navigate, and there's going to be a game plan feature on there that's coming soon that's going to help people kind of build what I'd say is a good congruent game, but it's somewhat unique in that like you're not just following a set thing. You can kind of, you have pathways that are built around what's going to best fit in with what you've currently got and studied.
Okay, so yeah, that was one thing I was going to ask is, because at the moment that game plan feature is grayed out and, to be, under construction. So I guess I can pair this with another question then of, there are a lot of different online subscription sites now out there from lots of different competitors. And I guess the question would be then, what is it that is going to give Submeta that kind of uniqueness, or that's going to elevate it above those other ones that are out there?
Off the top of my head, 4 things, if I can remember the 4. So the amount of content. I don't know if you've looked at it already, but there's like 66 courses released now. So it's probably like there's over 100 hours of content already on course, probably more than 120. They've got the video section as well for like individual techniques. So, but I basically plan to cover jiu-jitsu I'll say in its entirety. There's obviously going to be like certain areas where it's Lachlan Giles' view of jiu-jitsu, but I want to cover my view of jiu-jitsu in its entirety. So there's that. There's like content for specific levels. I think the game plan side and the ability to kind of, like we were talking about before, the issue of there being too much and not knowing what to do, like giving people direction, I think is important, that I don't think any websites are doing. I think a lot of them just use videos. A lot of online training websites are just videos. This is courses, so it's like systems, and then you can have systems that link together instead of just individual techniques. There's a couple of other things, like we've got exercises on there, so trying to like be a bit smarter with skill acquisition, but also some of the things from education, like active recall, which is basically like you learn better you don't learn best by being told something. You learn best by having to like go through the process of thinking about it and get the answer. So asking questions in the exercises section, which other courses, I don't know why no one else has done that in.
Yep, I did like that.
Jiu-jitsu instructionals, maybe because that's actually a lot of effort. It takes a long time to make, but like you look at all the online courses for other things and they use that, and they're not just doing that to be different. It's actually like, I think actually I did some research into that. There's two things. There was that and spaced repetition, where it had the biggest impact on memory retentions, how well you actually remember something. And this is like a systematic review of the published data. And I think each of them, so for the same amount of time studying, if you did active recall or spaced repetition, I think it was like roughly you would be one standard deviation ahead. The groups was one standard deviation ahead. So if you're normally in the middle of the class, but you were in another class now, you've changed classes, it's now doing this, you're now in like the top 17%. And one standard deviation. Yeah, I'll have to check my math again. Something around that. But you're like, if you've done it it's the same amount of effort, but just you're approaching learning in a smarter way, you do learn better. So that and spaced repetition, they're both things that we want to implement on the site.
So the active recall is the exercises that you have at the end of each course. There's a couple of questions that you'll show certain positions and ask, you've got to answer which is the best option for that. I really like that feature.
Yeah.
And then the video, you've got a video explanation that goes along with it. How is spaced repetition being integrated into it?
It's not yet, but that's something that's planned.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll tell you more about it when it is. But
that's it. It's still in beta. Is it still beta or still testing at the moment?
Look, there's more features we want to add to the website, but it's functioning now. Like it's pretty much ready for a release, just with more features coming as well as we're working on them.
Mm.
Basically, the development side took the longest, so I just kept stacking up more and more courses and content, which ends up really good. But like, yeah, there's a lot, and there's more that's like there'll be a little bit of a staggered release. So I've got a few things that are sitting there waiting to be released as we get underway.
Sure. So and also there's a lot of live rolling footage on there as well, a stack, which is really good.
Yeah.
And you've got some breakdown section in there as well.
Yeah.
Is there more of those going to be coming?
Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah. That's in the video section. There's like different types of videos. We got like breakdowns from flow grappling matches, which are really good. We got techniques. We got classes. We got rolling footage, specific training footage, and Q&A as well, like from in class. Oh, Walt's here.
He's got the young Giles zooming in. I mean, that's he's going to be doing a lot of learning himself now, I imagine.
I hope so.
And so I guess one thing with the game plan feature itself, and also with the discussion feature on the website, actually, this is a question, is there's a spot which I think I just checked is up and running now to leave comments and have a discussion underneath.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to be jumping in there yourself and answering some of those? Because I'm like, that could be a lot of questions coming his way.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, it's like, I mean, even then, it's like it can be a place that I'll do what I can there. Problem is, it's always hard, in my opinion, in words to articulate an issue you're having in jiu-jitsu. So both in someone writing to tell me what they were finding difficult about it, and then also in writing a response. But I suppose, like, depending on the question, there should be a room to get a good response, or at least a discussion amongst people.
That's fair enough. I thought it could be a bit much to ask. The personalized response to every question. And so, well, when do you see that going then completely live? Is that scheduled in? Or
hoping next month. So it's kind of like part of the
everything
slower release is just like make sure, like when you're starting to test at scale, you don't want to go, especially with a website that's people are paying money for. You don't want to have any major issues there. So it seems to be going pretty smoothly. A few little things that we've fixed. So hopefully next month.
Oh, awesome. All right. Well, I'll be sure to hopefully let's not lock anything in just yet.
Yeah.
So I think that pretty much covers where we're at with the website. Maybe the last kind of question would be in terms of the competition side of things for you. Is it is this potentially the last Adcc coming up, or is that just the sole focus, or how's that all going? If you give me an insight into the competition side.
Yeah, I do think this will probably be my last competition, this Adcc. I think probably like to do a couple of events in the lead up. I'm umming and ahhing about that because I'm starting to develop something a little bit different that I might want to.
Don't want to give the game away.
Yeah, so
the next meta.
Yeah, we'll see. There's something I've kind of just fallen into a bit, and it seems to be working really well.
Okay,
and it fits in really well with my existing game. So if it continues, I have to kind of keep testing it and see if there's any holes in the strategy. But if not, then it might be something I want to spring on people. Maybe there's no holes anyway, and it doesn't matter if they see it beforehand, but I'd still potentially rather them not know.
want that ace up the sleeve.
Yeah.
I won't delve into that then.
Well, I mean, I'm getting old, right? So you got to have, there's all these, the division's full of 18 and 19-year-olds, so you need something a bit different.
Yeah, I could only imagine. And then I guess with that, so you're still testing, you're still, workshopping this new side of things. When you are workshopping and testing it yourself, do you have that like a set crew that you're working with there that are helping you prepare for the comp, or is it just with your own students and just working that way?
Most of my training myself is at 10 a.m. We have our pro training. And look, there's people preparing for Adcc trials, a lot of people trying to prepare for that. So at the moment, just training in amongst those people who are preparing for that is enough to get everyone ready, I think, so, and get me ready as well, So obviously, once trials are finished, I'm hoping that we've got a bunch of guys going and we're all like getting ready together for it. But if not, I'm sure those same people will be able to kind of focus in a little more on helping me prepare against particular styles I might encounter in my division. So,
well, I'm sure everyone in Australia, everyone, not just jiu-jitsu grapplers, everyone is looking forward to seeing how you go with that, and hopefully, wishing you the best in that. If people want to get in touch with you, just to wrap up, obviously we've got, it's submeta.io.
Yes, go to submeta.io, then you can register your interest on submeta.io/want. I know our developers sending out some invites to people who do that to use the site, so yeah, it's not me, so don't message me because I have no control over that at all. So.
Have you been getting a few like, hey, Lachlan, let me in?
Yeah, I've had a few people. I mean, it's like that's all in the dark web as far as I have no idea how to access that side of it.
He's just in front of the camera.
Yeah.
The back end, someone else's problem. All right, awesome. Well, Lachlan, thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it, mate. It's an honour to be able to ask those questions and see where all things are happening. And yeah, really appreciate it, mate.
Thank you very much. It was a good chat.
Thanks.
Awesome. Cheers.
You have been listening to the Sonny Brown Breakdown. Until next time, you can visit sonnybrown.net to find out more ways to break it down.